everyone? It's your girl Brain Shanae, and today is my Stop for Hero Voices book tour, and I'm going to be doing a book review for Big Girl, and this is by Mecca, Jamilah, Sullivan. And right off the top, I just gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because it was that good. I really enjoyed it. There were some moments where it was a little bit triggering for me, but I didn't mind that at all because it made me realize and made me have a better understanding of my own circumstances and the personal relationship I felt like I had and the connection that I had with the main character, Malaya, which I will get to in a moment. But as we get into this book, we are introduced to Malaya, who is 8 years old, and this book is located in Harlem, where they moved. And we also have we get a better understanding of the other main characters or other characters in this book, like her mother Nayla, and then also her grandmother Mamir, and her father Percy, who she has a very, very close relationship with. And so Malaya, she's 8 years old, and her mother is worried about all the weight she has gained, and she introduces her and takes her to Weight Watchers with her because her mother is on Weight Watchers and she feels that maybe Malaya should be on Weight Watchers as well. So she's 8 years old, mind you, and I was not comfortable with that, and it sort of brought me back into when I was a child and I was overweight at the time, and I dealt with it with my mom and also with my dad, and I only got to have a break of not talking about my weight was with my grandmother, who I had a very, very close relationship with. And it brought me into tears, as like, why is this eight-year-old going to Weight Watchers? You know, let her be a child, let her be a kid, let her have fun. Instead, you know, she had, you know, Malaya at 8 years old is counting calories. And I feel like in the beginning of the book, it's like I really cannot stand her mother, not at the time. You know, as the book goes on, it progresses, and I start to get a better understanding of her mother. But at the beginning, I'm like, I am not on her mom's team right now. I'm mostly on her father's team because they constantly have these arguments, which is another thing that Malaya notices. And, you know, she's always in the center of the argument and always seems like she is the problem. And there was a note here where it says that but as she listened to them fighting now, Malaya could not help but feel this meant the blame fell to her. And I felt that. I felt for her when I read that, because it's true. When you're talking about a child and then you see, or talking about your kid and you see your parents fighting and they put you in the middle of it, you feel like you are the problem, and that doesn't feel good at all. I've experienced that, and it's not good to be in the middle of grown folks arguments and then you're being put into it and have to pick sides, in a sense. You know, I don't agree with that, and I feel and I think that's what made me so mad, and it triggered me because this is what I went through as a kid with my parents and them constantly arguing. And so, like, at the time I was team Percy because I really enjoyed, like, the fact that he just wanted to, you know, he was just having these special precious moments with his daughter, regardless of he got her Chinese food or something that she really enjoyed, and they would have these deep conversations that I really just loved. And it reminded me of the relationship that I had with my grandmother, and, you know, she would treat me to whatever, and he would have these deep conversations, and I was so young, but for her to just communicate with me like that, it just felt amazing. It felt like I wasn't alone. It felt like I had a moment of not talking about myself, of my body image, or about my weight. And so that was when she was 8 years old, and so the arguments just kept going and getting worse and worse and worse with Malaya and her father and her mother. And eventually, you know, her father was just sort of distant, but we didn't know why at the time. And so Malaya's mother thought he possibly was stepping out of the marriage, out of the relationship, and she thought that it was because of her weight. That was also something that Malaya started to notice, that her mother was always concerned about her weight because that was the only thing that was preached to her as a child from Malaya's grandmother. So Grandmere M. Nayla, that's her mom, and, you know, and stuff. So yeah, so Grandmere is Nyla's mother, and Nyla was always pressed about her weight is because her mom would tell her, in order to keep a happy home and to keep a man happy is to make sure you don't gain weight and you are fat. In a sense, that's pretty much what her mother was telling her. And so that's what Nyla was pretty much pushing on Malaya. And I think that she didn't notice it at the time. And Percy was also concerned about working and stuff and also being happy. So we get a lot of that. And then the thing with that, with Percy, is what Malaya's father told her was that, I want you to know that life isn't neat. Sometimes you have to pull a thread, make a choice for you. Once in a while, you have to make the choice that has your name on it. Even if it makes no sense to anyone else, that's what I want for you. And literally after that quote and her father was talking to her, her mother and her grandmother introduced something that, you know, this was during the time in the 90s, mind you. And so they were like, oh, we just heard of this surgery called gastric bypass. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so when they introduced the whole surgery aspect, Malaya, she was like 15, 16 years old. And they went to the doctor. The doctor was saying her name completely wrong, saying, yeah, this is the best for you. And you'll be the first and youngest person to ever get this surgery done. Yada, yada, yada. I'm like, no, 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 do not put her through this. She is still she is still growing. Her hormones is still going, you know, like that's not, you shouldn't be disrupting her body, you know? And I was just like, I was thrown in a loop. I'm like, oh my God, like leave this child alone. Like when they mentioned gastric bypass, I lost it. I put the book down for a second. I'm like, oh my God, this is so traumatic. Like, Malaya, I am so sorry. Like I was crying, I was in tears because I couldn't see myself doing that to my own child. But then, you know, because I'm breaking that cycle with what happened to me as I was growing up, and you know, the pressure of losing weight and stuff like that, which naturally for me, like it fell off. But you know, after having kids, you know, it happens. But like the pressure of constantly trying to lose weight, and then when you go out of town to have vacation with your family, that's the only thing you still talk about is my weight. And it was so tiring, and it was depressing. And so I felt for Malaya the entire time when I was reading this book. And then we learn more information as the time goes on, and more things are soon to be revealed regarding her mother and why she was acting the way she was, not only towards Percy, but towards Malaya as well. And, you know, as we get closer to the end of the book, we do deal with someone who, you know, Malaya loses someone in her life that's very important to her. I'm not going to try to spoil this for that much. And so at that time, I feel like that's when Nyla and Malaya were coming together and having these conversations that they needed to have. And so like for this one, let me see if I can find it. So this is when Malaya is talking to her mother, and that's when, like I said, they have these deep conversations after they're still grieving. And so it says, we saw all this change for the neighborhood. You couldn't have told us it wouldn't be for us. We never thought it would be for white folks moving in, as much as we know about the world. They don't even see it. They move in because they love Harlem, what they think Harlem is, and then they erase it. That's the story of Black culture. We make magic, they consume it, make it theirs. We have to start over, and we do over and over again. It's hard on people. So this is what Malaya's mother is talking to her, you know, so she's talking to Malaya. It says, folks work and struggle and make do for years longer, praying for things to get better. They hold on long enough, just long enough to see the change come. And as soon as change does come, they realize it's not for them. It's hard watching home unravel in your hands. It's like the minute home becomes what you dreamed of, it's not your home anymore. It makes for a kind of madness, like there's no such thing as home. And then she explains more information about her marriage with Percy to Malaya. And it says, but the new Percy was a stranger, but I tried. You try so hard to keep everything together. This is what it is to be a woman. Everything is your job. Your job is everything: to be attractive, successful, raise smart, healthy children who are ready for life, to be available to everything, to be everything, and you work hard at it, at everything, at doing all this, everything right. And in the back of your mind, you're holding your breath and waiting for someone to hand you a prize, something that says you did a good job, you did good at everything, and someone appreciates it. if you're lucky, you get little flashes here and there, a promotion at work, or someone notices you lost a few pounds, but you always hope for that one person who will look at you and see all the everything you do and applaud. And so it says that everything of womanhood carries no reward at all, and yet everything still has to get done. So you keep working and you stop waiting, but the hope is still there, tucked in a corner. Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps you going, the hope that someone, that one person will applaud. So from that moment, when her mother was saying all this to her, I realized that one person that she was talking about Percy. And I think that maybe, it never really said in the book, but I feel like maybe Maliah's mother was a little bit jealous of Maliah, because her father, Percy would tell Maliah that she's beautiful no matter what. And I feel like that's what Nayla wanted from her husband to say to her, because she's trying to do everything to look attractive, every single thing, and also to raise a young woman and stuff like that, and to make sure she's healthy. And in my head, us women, sometimes we think that men can read our minds, and they don't. They can't read our minds, and sometimes they need that help. They need that little push, stating like, aren't you going to tell me that I'm beautiful today? Well, how come I have to remind you about this? Like, da 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 da. Thank God I don't have to do that. But there are some men out there who needs that extra help. Be like, hey, you see I'm doing all this? Like, can I get a thank you? Can you appreciate me? Can you tell me that I look beautiful? Stuff that makes you feel good, And so after I said I wasn't I was team Percy, now that I have a better understanding of her mother and why she was doing things and saying things towards Maliah, it all made sense, and it came up in full circle of what was going on, as far as being concerned about Maliah and her weight. And I enjoyed every moment of this book. It was beautifully written. I liked how it took us on a journey from when Maliah was 8 to teenager to grown, stuff like. So I liked it. I liked how the flow of it, the writing style was brilliant. I had no problems whatsoever with this book, and I'm just so happy that I read it. But not only did I loved and enjoyed every single moment of this book, I enjoyed the awareness of what it brings to the table as far as what society says what is attractive and what's beautiful, and your beauty is based on the size of your body and how skinny you are, and that society is like that, and it still is. I mean, you see examples of like Lizzo, and people keep talking about her weight and stuff, and she's unhealthy, but she be dancing her butt off and work out and everything, and that is her body type, and people just constantly get at her and talk about her weight and talk about how ugly she is, and that is not true at all. Your body should not define how beautiful you are, or determine how you are as a person, like saying, oh, she must be a terrible person because look at her body. Like, no, that is not it at all. Like, your body shouldn't define even how happy you are either. It shouldn't define you as a person. And that's what I loved and what this book had brought to the table. Like I said, I enjoyed every single moment of it. I enjoyed the awareness. I enjoyed the family dynamic of not everything is perfect, but it's still a family, and it's still with love. And yes, there are times where cycles need to be broken, and for us to realize that those cycles are continuing, and you have the ability and to determine whether you want to continue on with the cycle or completely break it and start something new and better, and healthier and happier for you and your family. So this is what I like. I love this book. If you haven't picked this book up, I suggest you do so. I know this book came out, I believe this is now in paperback this year, so it just came out in paperback, and so if you haven't got your copy, I suggest you do so because it's good. Like I said, I gave it a 4 to 5 stars, and I loved it so much, and I just love the awareness that it brought. But that is it. I really hope you enjoyed this book review. I know it was all over the place. Like, I was really just had a great time reading this and getting to know more about Maliah, and getting to know more about Mecca, Jamilah Sullivan, this author. And so I definitely cannot wait to read more books by her. I'm just really excited, and I'm glad that I was able to read this because it's phenomenal. But I really hope you enjoyed this book review, and I hope you all are having a great day and you're staying healthy and staying safe. See ya.